the morning to you all. Good morning and welcome to Good Morning Kenya. I am Jane Wambui. It is the 26th day of August 2020. We do trust you had a peaceful night. You woke up nice and early to get started with your day, and we are absolutely glad that you chose to start with us right here on KBC Channel 1. Nothing but the best lineup for you. And today, on my end of things, we are going to be continuing with our series of discussion that we started yesterday revolving around the film industry. And today we're going to be having some, filmmakers joining us to just tell us how things are, the projects that they are doing, especially during these times that we are in, and what more we can do as a people to help them keep doing what they're doing and cushion, especially the filmmakers, and just forge a way forward that will be long-lasting, and the whole conversation around formalizing the film industry. We welcome you to be part of these discussions.
Why, Jen, you be discussing all that? Like,
I saw Sam, there's something wrong with you.
You be discussing all that. And there we have it. Good morning.
Oreo.
We need to stop. Have an Oreo on us. And you can see Regina there looking all too serious. She ain't laughing. She ain't.
I'm not getting into that conversation. I'm just going to be a silent observer. So this is me being silent.
If only you knew the conversations that were happening here before we opened the show. But thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to the only way to start your day. Good morning, Kenya. My name is Samuel Njoroge. I've sort of realized there are two buzzwords with my co-hosts. With Regina, it's right about now. And with Jane, my end of things. I think I need to find my own. Somehow, somewhat, somewhere. But welcome to the show, and thank you for choosing KBC to kickstart your day. As Jane would say, from my end of things, other than reviewing the Star, I will be talking to the Universities Presidents Association. They sort of want universities to be reopened as soon as possible. They wrote a letter to the president, and now they're talking about seeing the Cabinet Secretary Education, George Magoha, to grant them their wish. So how possible is that in the wake of COVID-19? We'll be discussing that right here on the show, and it's Wednesday, thus the viewpoint. The twists, the turns, just like the bold and the beautiful is our political circle in this country. So we'll be getting to understand why would Deputy President William Ruto now lay the blame on the president, that is Uhuru Kenyatta, when it comes to running the executive and corruption in government. So all that and much more will be discussed right here on the show. Hashtag Good Morning Kenya. But I'm handing you over to
yours truly,
right about
Regina.
now.
Yes, right about now, we're going to be focusing on stories that are making headlines. Good morning once again. Indeed, we are happy that you chose to start your morning with Good Morning Kenya. Indeed, this is KBC Channel 1. I'm Regina Manyara, considered the serious person in this tripartite, association here, but it's okay. That's me. Yeah, someone wants to get me, but I refuse. I refuse to can. Now, I cannot can. Now, looking at stories that are making headlines in the last 24 hours is Governor Obado and 4 of his children are to be arrested. That is according to the DPP, as well as if you're a parent and a guardian and you are celebrating having not to pay school fees for the next 6 months, well, you need to rethink that, because as it sounds or as it seems, schools may reopen just before January 2021. Are you ready as a parent? That and so much more, including that a Senate 12-member committee failed to reach an agreement on county revenue sharing formula. Coming up in not too long in the headlines.
As Sam was doing his intro, I was expecting him to say, and so are the days of our lives. Given he was going all out, but that is that. Let's get started with what is happening in the headlines this morning. And looking at the front page of the Daily Nation, Obado and his 4 children face arrest in theft case. Details of that coming up in a bit. Joy for families as the World Health Organization says Africa is free of wild polio. Good news amid this tough times we are in. Looking at the main story there on the front page of the Daily Nation, ex-Uhuru, Raila men lead Ruto crack team. Change of sides. We'll be giving you details of all these political shenanigan that is going on here on the front page of the Daily Nation, but this is in regards to regional networks that are key to strategy with plans that are building towards 2022. Still on the front page of the Daily Nation, the court slams break on community learning as you're supposed to kick off, but the government has plans for the resumption of learning that could be before the previously slated January 2021. All that and much more coming up. And of course, there's a piece here in regards to how post-election chaos bred peace. A twist of irony right there. All this is coming up in a bit as we get started into this segment.
Now let's move on to the Star. And this is the headline. Why Haji wants Obado and his 3 children in jail. Okay, there has been that case investigation that has been ongoing by the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. It now accuses Okoth Obado, Migori County Governor, of using proxies, that is his children and members of his family, to siphon funds from the county. And courtesy of this now, the Director of Public Prosecutions, that is Nurdin Haji, wants Obado and his children in jail. So that is the headline in the Star today, and also other stories that have been highlighted. I saw Raila Jr. for the first time when he was 9. These are the words of former Prime Minister Raila Amolo Odinga as he recounts his life and times in politics, alleging that there was a time in his life where he was pulled off from his family, pulled off from his children, and he got to see his son, that is Raila Jr., for the first time when he was 9 years old. Now, that story has been given a human interest angle by the Star this morning, not to mention the Deputy President who is milking the COVID scandal dry. What is he saying? The Jubilee Party and the executive, led by the President Uhuru Kenyatta, is applying double standards when it comes to the war against corruption. You will find that story too in the Star this morning, covered on page 2. Also highlighted here is that Parliament is at risk of dissolution. Muturi warns MPs. Why? It's all about the formula to get monies to the counties. As Regina said, the 12-member committee cannot give the country some white smoke. So what happens now moving forward? These are some of the issues that we shall be looking at when it's time to clock into the Viewpoint this Wednesday. Colleges to open in September if COVID situation improves. And this is according to Education Cabinet Secretary, that is George Magoha. But remember, I also told you at exactly 7:30, I will be having the Universities Presidents Association to weigh in on this issue. They want universities reopened as soon as possible. But is that possible this far owing to the COVID-19 situation? We will be looking into that in the course of the show. But that is a highlight of the front page of the Star this Wednesday. Regina.
Focusing on the Standard this morning, this is how the front page looks like. And there, Governor Obado and 4 of his children to be arrested. That takes the top story that we have on the Standard this morning. There, pictured there is Governor Obado. Remember, he made headlines with the alleged murder of a lady called Sharon and her unborn baby. And when this information about the arrest of him and his 4 children came out, Kenyans on social media were saying, wow, awesome. So a whole family is indicted, or rather is to be indicted over 73 billion fraud case, and yet not the murder of Sharon. Kenyans wanting or rather demanding justice in regard to this particular issue. 73.5 million from the county coffers spread between his family, his brothers and his children included. Details are going to be coming up in not too long. And what we mentioned, or rather what I had alluded to earlier, as a parent and a guardian, you thought you're gonna have a reprieve in paying school fees for 6 months, given the fast communication that we got from the education sector. But as it seems, well, schools might just reopen before 2021. Are you ready for that? Well, Sam is going to be tackling what is happening within the tertiary institutions. Is that Education Cabinet Secretary George Magoha yesterday alluded to the fact that these schools might actually reopen given the drop in COVID-19 numbers. Then Kenyans were asking on social media then if the government is looking at reopening learning institutions, are they going to reconsider opening up bars to allow sale of alcohol? Questions are abound in regard to how government is handling the issue of COVID-19, trying to stem the spread amid, adverse effects, or rather what we're terming as the domino effect of the pandemic there. Why you should not eat that school fees yet. That's the story that has captured the eye of the scribes this morning on the front page of The Standard.
Now getting to the details of these stories, let's start with this conversation around Obado. That is on the page 6 of the Daily Nation. And here, Obado faces arrest in a graft probe as corruption money has come out involving his children. And the children in this case are Susan Scarlett, Jerry Zachary, Evelyn Adhiambo, and Dan Achola Okoth. Now, this came after the Director of Public Prosecutions, that is Nordin Haji, yesterday ordered the dragging to court of the governor's family after agreeing with findings of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. And according to the DPP, the governor was being investigated in regards to an amount building up to 73.4 million Kenya shillings that was indirectly received by the governor and other millions. The governor's companies that are said to have traded with the devolved governments during his first term of office. And according to Mr. Haji, he went on to say that the 4 children are said to have separately received 34.5 million Kenya shillings from Mr. Obado's companies and the 3 brothers who acted as proxies in some of the farms that the county boss owned. Now, Mr. Haji was quoted saying public money was lost through inconvenience of the governor and the business entities in its payments made for performance of contracts that were not delivered, and an audit trail of the money led to persons that are closely related to the governor being arrested because the money trail led to them. End of quote.
Now let's move on to the Star, and I choose to stay away from politics and get into a human interest story that is told through the eyes of former Prime Minister, that is Raila Amolo Odinga. He says he got to see his son for the first time when he was 9 years old, and we're making reference to Raila Jr. And of course, this is the story told of a man who has been at the center stage of politics in this country. He goes ahead to pay an emotional tribute to the matriarch of his family, that is Ida Odinga, for having played what he calls a pivotal role in making sure that his family stayed intact when he was in prison. And this daily goes ahead and outlines some of the circumstances, politically so, that have posed a challenge to Raila's family. Talk about being arrested in September 1982, charged with treason of a coup attempt. And in 1988, he was arrested again for involvement with human rights and pro-democracy activists. And come 1990, alongside Kenneth Matiba and Charles Rubia, he was arrested yet again. You remember the clamor towards multipartyism in the country. And in 1991, he had to flee to Norway after fearing for his life. There were assassination claims over his life. And that's now, this story now talks about a man who we are used to seeing through the political lens, but we sort of ignore that he is a father, he is a husband, and now that is what the Star has decided to do this morning. Page 4 to 5 highlight the man, the husband, the father, the grandfather that is Raila Amolo Odinga.
About Raila Amolo Odinga, it seems that his fight between him and the Deputy President William Ruto has intensified, especially over the COVID-19 cash. Now, Ruto has accused ODM of defending those involved in the saga of alleged inflated costs of vital equipment meant to fight COVID-19 by KEMSA. and said that the DCI and the DPP must work independently. ODM has retaliated, and according to ODM Secretary General Edwin Sifuna and Jubilee Vice Chairman David Murathe, they said that what Ruto is saying is misplaced. In a statement, precisely, Sifuna said ODM has never and will never defend corruption. If the party leader or any member was culpable in the KEMSA scandal, Ruto would be falling over himself to present such evidence to the public. That is what ODM, their Secretary General Edwin Sifuna had to say about that. But still, keeping up that conversation in regard to matters of COVID-19 and the probe, Deputy President William Ruto has asked, even on his official Twitter handle, if you are on Twitter, you can get what he had to say in regard to this particular investigation. Quoted there, why must independent institutions wait for a special audit before carrying out their mandate? That is what Deputy President had to say in regard to the probe on COVID cash and how it has been used. Yesterday, there was an arrest of protesters in Nakuru and Kisumu who had taken to the streets to just, ask the institutions to investigate how these monies are being spent in light of, increased cases of COVID-19, as well as the death rate that is continuing to shoot up. We have a detailed report in regard to that and what the Deputy President had to say yesterday, as prepared by our reporter Khalid.
The country has been treated to a political circus in recent days following reports that millions of shillings could have been lost in the procurement of critical COVID-19 supplies. Calls to have a special audit of COVID-19 funds by the Orange Democratic Movement, which have been endorsed by party leader Raila Odinga, appearing to stir controversy with those opposed to a forensic audit, terming it a process meant to defend those accused of engaging in the alleged fraud.
All the investigative agencies are independent institutions. They do not need any guidance, any lectures, or any directions from anybody. They will know what to do. There are those who are looking for this so-called special audit because they are looking for detergents and sanitizers for the laundromats they run.
Deputy President William Ruto trailing his guns on the Orange Democratic Party, accusing it of attempted cover-up of mega fraud at a time the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission has commenced investigations into the alleged crimes. The Deputy President terming the opposition party's double standards as glaring, loud and obvious.
They were telling us the other day people to take political responsibility, people to resign, people to be taken to court. Today, they are telling us, no, wait. Let's wait with the investigations. First, let's do audit, professional audit. Gentlemen, my friends, your doublespeak is so loud and your double standards are so obvious and so glaring that it doesn't matter where we look, they are obvious. From telling us take political responsibility, to telling us people must step aside, to telling us people must be taken to court. Now you are telling us, no, let's do a special audit. Things have really changed.
Ruto was speaking at his current residence in Nairobi during a meeting with religious leaders.
All right, camera 5 is to my left. Now, let's get back to the Daily Nation this morning. We want to look at this story that is the main story on the front page of the Daily Nation in regards to ex-Uhuru and Raila men now to lead Ruto's team. and it is highlighted here on page 8, where former Uhuru and Raila men are now heading up Ruto's campaign team, and these are specifically former senators, that is Johnson Muthama and Boni Khalwale, as well as Mr. Chirchir, who is a former electoral commission official, who now leads and is expected to come to come up with a manifesto and other technical aspects of the campaign for Deputy President leading to 2022. Now, all these three gentlemen are said to have had vital and key roles during the 2017 presidential campaign for NASA flag bearer Mr. Odinga and Kalonzo Musyoka, as well as Hassan Omar, and have been tasked with the now sensitive responsibilities under DP's 2022 presidential campaign. And looking at Dr. Ruto, it is also said that he has reached out to President Kenyatta's 2017 elections chief agent and former energy cabinet, that is now Dr. Chirchir, who is now going to be coming up with the manifesto. And alongside Dr. Chirchir, it is said that he's also going to be having the chief of staff, who is known as Ken Osinde, also a former Kenyan ambassador to Germany, as the secretary to Mr. Chirchir, as they come up with his manifesto for 2022. And Mr. Muthama was considered as a strong backer for the Raila-Kalonzo alliance for 2013 and 2017, and he's also said to have been one of the key financiers of the opposition campaign during that time.
Now, still keeping up with what is making, headlines, and we're focusing on the issue of, schools reopening. In its latest report, or in his latest speech, Education Cabinet Secretary Professor George Magoha hinted to a possibility of, open schools reopening before January 2021. And that has been captured on the Standard this morning on the front page, and details captured there on page 6. Just to read but a few, is that Education Cabinet Secretary has said that schools could reopen before January 21st if the COVID-19 situation in the country continues to improve. Now, the country's caseload in as far as COVID-19 cases stand at 32,803, while out of a total sample of 429,513. Now, in the last 24 hours, that was yesterday, during that particular briefing by the Ministry of Health, is that out of 4,149 samples tested, only 246 confirmed, Kenya registered 246 cases of COVID-19. We have so far, the caseload of recovered cases stands at 19,055, and the number of deaths stand at 559. In yesterday's brief, Tharaka Nithi had 1 case, Isiolo 1, Tana River 1, Nyamira 1, Bungoma 1, and most surprisingly, Mombasa had 7. Well, all this started, we had areas of Mombasa leading, but now it seems that Nairobi has become the hotspot of COVID-19. And the Ministry of Education says that with this current trend where our infection rate seems to be, going down, currently standing at 5.9%, government is working at getting it to 5%, then schools might reopen. The question is, have you already spent that money that you had set aside for school fees this year? Well, if you haven't totally depleted those particular funds, then you need to just hang on to them a little more until we see which direction the government is going to take in regard to matters education. Now, this comes at a time when community-based learning program has suffered a major setback after the courts stopped its implementation pending a hearing of a case in which parents want schools reopen. Now, according to Emily K. Bade, this says that the Ministry of Education is actually defending community-based learning program and accusing dishonest individuals of pushing for the premature reopening of schools for selfish gain.
The Ministry of Education will have to go back to the drawing board after the courts blocked the rollout of the community-based learning program that has been a subject of debate amid queries on its legality and practicability.
These are the children who are not getting online learning. where they live, in the localities that they live, some of the 350,000 teachers are living with them. For example, me as Magoha, I am a teacher. And if I'm called upon by a group of children to go and teach mathematics in standard 5, 6, 7, or chemistry up to Form 4, I can do it without going to the lab. Do you understand?
In a new twist to the woes facing the Education Ministry, a parent moved to the court to demand the government reopen school in September for third term. In the case, the parent, Joseph Aura, has named the Cabinet Secretary for Education, the Health Cabinet Secretary, the Attorney General as respondents. In the petition, he argues closure of schools for prolonged periods violates the Constitution and children's right to an education. He is also accusing Magoha and Kagwe of alleging exhibiting reckless indifference to the possibility of causing pain and suffering on students and pupils, citing non-existent consultations with stakeholders. At the same time, he argues the community-based learning has no legal underpinning and is a weighting of Kenya's high education standards. This development coming as Magoha said the government will not be cowed into resumption of learning without putting in place the much-needed protocols demanded by the Health Ministry.
Some small number of private schools, some cartels in my own ministry. The narrative is that we must open, and we must open yesterday. And like I said, even yesterday from where I was speaking, the government is not going to be intimidated.
The CS explained that the community-based learning was meant to reach the children who do not have access to virtual learning facilities.
Online learning for our children, facts which you have. You also know that that online learning is not reaching all the children because, for example, the children in the slums, the urban slums and far distant areas.
Meanwhile, leaders from Busia County have called on the government to shelve the reopening of schools and instead use the school-based learning program until students and teachers are assured of their safety as the pandemic effects continue to be felt. For Channel 1 News, I'm Emily K. Bade.
You know, one of these days we're going to give you a real feel of the behind-the-scenes conversations that go on here with these two, my colleagues, as inappropriate as they are. But let's get back to this conversation, and we just want to continue with that angle on matters to do with the education sector. And here on the Daily Nation, it is in regards to reasons as to why the community-based learning was halted by the court, as there was a parent who petitioned and was now questioning the decision that was made by His Excellency to close schools. Now, it is said to have suffered another setback, this whole community-based learning that was supposed to kick-start. And yesterday, according to the High Court, they had to stop the Ministry of Education from rolling out the community-based learning. And according to a ruling that was issued by Justice James Makau, he said that, you know, this temporary order was came as a result of a parent who filed through Mr. Joseph Enoch challenging the government's decision to close the schools. Now, Mr. Aura says that the decision to close school was draconian and a violation of learners' rights and provisions of the Basic Education Act, and he now wants the court to determine the legality of President Uhuru Kenyatta's directive on March 15th suspending schooling activities indefinitely due to coronavirus. Now, according to him, the directive is questionable as it is neither published in the Kenya Gazette nor tabled in the National Assembly for debate and approval. He further went on to say that the closure of schools is not a solution to a little-known public health issue, quote-unquote, that was classified as COVID-19 and whose mortality rate is not certifiable to date. And he further went on to say that, you know, by subjecting children to such prolonged closures from school due to unfounded reasons, there has been a severity of pain and suffering on this public schools and the pupils who go to these schools and the students. End of quote.
Right, still keeping tabs with education matters and how COVID-19 has had an effect on that sector. Education Cabinet Secretary George Magoha yesterday did allude to the fact that schools could be reopening in September, but this is subject to an assessment, and education officials have been touring universities and technical institutions for the last 8 days trying to assess the situation. As of now, the government remains committed to closing all institutions until a time when they will devise a protocol that is going to aid into schools reopening. But now the greater concern lies with the year 2021, because there will be a double enrollment for ECD centers, primary schools, owing to the fact that for the better part of this year, schools have been closed, and it thus means that there could be a repeat of the syllabus for the current class next year, but that does not exactly excuse the fact that an enrollment is actually going to happen. So how will government take care of this situation moving forward? What measures will be put in place to ensure that there are no hitches, there are no hiccups that will be experienced as we witness a double enrollment in schools next year? Now, that is the story that has been covered on page 7 of the Star today, and how exactly government will consider going around this situation to ensure that we've had talk about capacity, we've had talk about the quality of classrooms, the quantity of pupils and students in those particular classrooms. But now come next year, courtesy of COVID-19, we could see a surge in terms of double enrollments in schools. How will this strain capacity within the education sector, and what measures will be put in place to cushion the country from adverse effects that will come up courtesy of this double enrollment? That is page 7 of the Star for you this Wednesday.
Keeping up with the education sector is that students' agony after the school closes and turns into a hospital. Yes, this is happening to 54 students of Highway School in Kisumu County. And now the Ministry of Education has launched investigations into the circumstances under which an examination center was turned into a hospital despite the school's registration still being valid. Now, at least 54 Form 4 students who had registered to see the Kenya Certificate of Secondary School Education, that is KCSE, at the school are now staring at a bleak future following the closure of the community institution. And another 50 students in Form 1, 2 and 3 have also been affected by the move. The students are from the Highway Secondary School, and the parents are in dilemma after the school was turned into a health facility with a big signage, Kisumu Heart Center, on it. This is a developing story. What is happening down in Kisumu County that has been captured on page 23 of the Standard this morning, as the ministry continues, with that particular investigation into the circumstances under which that particular learning institution took that turn. Now, where victims of violence get their hope restored. Human interest here. Now, some captured there in this particular story, page 19. Some women who had been rescued at the Hope Rescue Center in Hardy Karen, Nairobi there, working on a few items there. You can see some sewing, some engaged in carpentry and such. Now, apparently, this particular center is focusing on just rehabilitation of sorts. People who have dealt with matters of, gender-based violence, displacement and such. One case story that has been captured is that a Standard 7 pupil here got pregnant when she was in Standard 7 and moved in with a man responsible. And this is where the trouble started, as the man would force himself on them, and after giving birth, it was more pronounced and hard to run away. That's one. This is Brenda's story, one of the beneficiaries of the Hope Center in Karen, that is giving hope to persons who have survived gender-based violence. If you're interested to see what other Kenyans are doing in their capacity to just help, correct some wrongs and some ills in society, well, that's the story that you can focus on.
All right, now let's move on to the Daily Nation and just switch the conversation a bit and look at matters to do with health. And this is one of the stories that is also on the front page in regards to polio and Africa. And according to the World Health Organization, Africa is now officially free of wild polio. And according to Professor Rose Ghana, who is the chairperson of the African Regional Certification Commission for Polio Eradication. She was quoted yesterday saying, "Today is a historic day for Africa. The ARCC is pleased to announce that the region has successfully met the certification criteria for wild polio eradication, with no cases being reported in the region for the last 4 years." Now, looking at, how Africa was suffering under this polio pandemic, it is said that every year the wild polio had paralyzed at least 75,000 children in the continent, in Africa alone, and because it was transmitted from person to person, mainly through fecal matter, and 1 in every 200 infections leads to irreversible paralysis consequences. And among those who were paralyzed, the World Health Organization estimated that 5 to 10% die when their breathing muscles become immobilized. And also, speaking during this, the delivery of this report, was the World Health Organization Regional Director for Africa, Matshidiso Moeti, who was now saying now future generations of African children can live free of wild polio. Some good news amid these tough times that we are going through, guys. I'm a VP.
That is it. Quite impressed because there was a time when Kenyans were really having a great debate in regard to why we're still dealing with polio in the 21st century.
Yeah.
And the Ministry of Health had been going out giving oral medication, and parents were actually very skeptic. There was actually a lot of debate, especially from the religious sect, that was saying that this polio vaccine of sorts was misplaced, and they were not so sure they can trust in the process. But now it seems that the government has been vindicated now that Kenya has been declared polio free.
And Africa is the continent,
what was that
man.
name again, Jane?
Sorry?
Matshidiso what? It was such a
Sam,
mouthful.
leave me alone.
Congratulations for getting it right.
Yeah.
But let's move on now to the Star and shift a little bit now to business. And it's all about Kenya Revenue Authority and meeting its targets. I'm very sure, Ray, you've covered this story extensively over the years. Kenya Revenue Authority has never, can we say, rise to the occasion?
Has never met its targets,
It's
and
never
more
met
yet.
its standards. Its targets.
Its targets
Never rose to the occasion. And now the Commissioner General, that is James Mboro, sort of has a plan to ensure that they at least collect 1.63 trillion this financial year.
Plan.
I love the smile and the expression on Ray's face. She's like, 1.63 trillion, really, given history? Nah.
And you
it's
see,
not
other
gonna
than
happen.
just history, let's look at it this way. Businesses have not been performing well as
That's
they
true.
should. Remember, in President Uhuru Kenyatta's economic stimulus, it also says that they're going to reduce the turnover tax from 3% to 1%, just to name but a few. The issue of PYE has been reduced also.
To
And
25%.
to 25%.
And people are losing jobs.
So
the capacity
with the current,
of
yes,
pulling
unless
off
now,
is down.
unless he has a magic wand, not to be a pessimist, I'm just trying to be a realist, that we need to prepare for tougher times to come. Because we know government does not generate revenue.
Yeah.
Revenue, actually, VAT and PYE are government's main sources of income. So if this is diminished with the current situation that we're having, and what does that mean?
Actually, I'm more concerned about the financial year 2021-2022. It's going to be a little bit messy. I don't mean to be a pessimist. Yes, we'll be heading into an election. That is in August 2022. We'll be heading into a new financial year, that is 2022-2023. And this is COVID-19 that is already affecting this season. So how will KRA exactly achieve this target of 1.63 trillion Kenya shillings, owing to the factors that Regina has outlined there? All too honestly, because when you look at pay, for example, it has been reduced to 25%. When you look at the capacity in terms of the pool of people who used to pay or have their salaries deducted, it has also shrinked. So what plan is this that the Director General has that is going to make sure that we collect 1.36 trillion? And this is the money predominantly that will provide a baseline for the financial year 2021-2022, which will be an election year. I mean, talk
I'd love
of
to
Miss
hear that
Rona
plan, by the way,
doing
because
her thing.
Looking at, how things have been in the past, there's always a plan, but we always fall short.
Yeah.
And now, given that we're in tougher times, and there was this conversation even before when President Kenyatta was actually giving these directives in terms of the financial state of the country and the people, critics were actually questioning this move to do away with to bring in place these reductions. And they were saying, maybe we're shooting ourselves in the foot, because we're going to pay for this in the long run. And they were saying maybe we should have gone for other alternatives as opposed to slashing the government's main source of income.
Sort of looking forward to our business bulletin on Thursday, Regina.
With
Yes.
Manyar.
I'm looking forward to it tomorrow.
We had a conversation with some economists drawn from different, firms there, and they said things are looking bleak, and that Kenya might actually have to sink further into debt to finance this financial year. But remember that we're already in the red, though CBK governor there, Dr. Patrick Njoroge there, said that we do not need to so much worry about our level of debt. Critics out here have said that we are on the red, and Kenyans and the exchequer needs to be very careful which direction we take. Whether if we borrow externally or internally, it will still have an adverse effect on the economy going forward. So it's a matter of waiting and see. I don't know what Kerry has up its sleeve, but over the years, they have not been missing their targets, and more so this year. Is very unlikely that they will get to 1.6 trillion.
Just a question, Regina, though. There's a pocket of sunshine when it comes to COVID-19, and that is the fact that countries have been forced to look inwards. And that is what is happening even right here in the country. Revival of certain industries and creating jobs through some. Can we count on that to sort of give us some sort of reprieve moving forward? The fact that we shall revive, or we are reviving, our industries right here in the country, we are providing more jobs, and we're sort of looking for solutions that are tailor-made for our market. Is that a reprieve moving forward?
That is a plan that government had in build and starting up this conversation that Buy Kenya, Build Kenya. And right now with the pandemic, we've seen people shifting focus from, FMG goods or what you call fast-moving goods, and they're focusing on PPEs because that is where demand is. But how sustainable is this?
Now
when
that's the question.
Then you counter the farms that have closed down vis-a-vis the ones that are coming up. How many people relied on the ones that had already been established over the years? Look at what is happening within the retail market. We had the issue of Naivas, we had the issue of Tuskys. Yes, they got a reprieve, but you remember we've seen ShopRite leave the country, and Kenyans are already worried about how fast Quickmart is expanding. So in as far as business looking in, this is something that we should have focused on way before. But now I'm happy that people are we are entrepreneurs, we are survivors as Kenyans. But I think it's a matter of wait and see. And as analysts said, economists said, and I can quote what they had to say, is that the ripple effect of COVID-19 will have far-reaching effects, not just in this financial year, but leading into other years to come. That's when we will know if the investments right now that we have made in changing our industries to focus on more PPEs and such is going to help us withstand the economic crisis that we are staring at or not.
And talking about Tuskys and expansion of retail outlets, there's a Mauritian, we've got a group of Mauritian investors that have poured 2 billion Kenya shillings into Tuskys in a bid to bail it out. I believe that's a pocket of sunshine too, in as far as making sure that jobs are not lost, making sure that this particular retail outlet, because it provides employment to people out there.
So many people.
So many people out there, so it still will be existing moving forward. But last year, for example, we saw the revival of institutions like Rivertex, in Kikotex, right here in Kiambu. We have also an institution similarly in Kitui. And Betty Maina said, that is the CS Industrialization, said that there will be a deliberate effort to maximize on the potential of these industries to make sure that Kenya is cushioned from the adverse effects of COVID-19. But I like what you say, Regina. It still remains to be a wait-and-see situation, and therefore poking holes into our strategy, financial strategy. How well is it planned to make sure that we protect ourselves from adverse effects? I mean, COVID-19 has come up with a case study that every economist, government, you and I I'm forced to think deeper, think broader when it comes to what kind of financial strategies we embrace in our lives. And thus now this will be a case study moving forward, not only for the financial year 2020-2021, but also 2021-2022. Then we have to recover from an election, so 2022-2023.
And
God bless Kenya.
Looking at all that, there's all this conversation about how, as a people, we are more reactive as opposed to being proactive. That now brings also questions on how sustainable these changes are going to be, because looking at Tuskys, it's not that this problem just popped up. It is something that, is said that, maybe the sons may have, misused money here and there. But looking at that situations, we need to change the way we think and how we do things moving forward and be more proactive as opposed to being reactive.
Now we take a short break. When we return, we're going to be looking at what is happening in the education sector with my colleague Sam Njoroge.
Tonight on KBC Channel 1.
He saved me. Oh, he rushed to save me. I didn't think he would.
Of course he would. You're the mother of his child.
So that's why he did it.
I should count for something.
No. It shows I'm a fool for believing that he did it because it was me.
Their job is to give you the best case scenario. So what if I believe them and then I have to watch her dying all over again?
What do you mean, dying all over again?
Tonight on KBC Channel 1.
What you tell yourself? Don't give him your love for free. Make him spend time and loyalty on you. Tell them, warn them, teach them, preach them. Because they're just sort of disconnected.
Them say what them say, promise everything okay. No matter what one girl, my always be there.
You don't show the one, and you give me something serious. Oh, you got me curious.
On the next episode of
Sasa sikia jokes. Nasema tamati, yani litakuwa mwisho. Oh, kaimati ndio mwisho. Hapana, tamati sio. Yani litakuwa ndio mwisho na tamati sio kaimati. Maana yake umepata mtu? Ala. Tuti. Wafikiria mchezo? Usiseme. Sisemi.
Tujeni kazi zenu Oh my baby, you replay. Playing my favorite tune. Oh, you're chasing ready your love. Oh, already your love. My chérie, atana pasi na sana yo. Baby, my honey.
Tunakupa burudani.
Na umbea, yani stories zinazo trend kwenye mitandao ya kijamii.
See baby, now we are two in one. We are two in one.
Interview kali za wasanii wapendao.
Mguu upande panda milima. Izungushie hapo kama una
Ndani ya March of Life kupitia KBC Channel 1 na Pwani FM.
Kuanzia mida ya saa 3 mpaka mida ya 5 kamili asubuhi. Ukiwa nami ni Teken 1GB.
Mimi ni Maku. Keep it locked.
Malewa.
Yeah. Isemeka wana for daddy.
Thank you for being a part of Good Morning Kenya this Wednesday. My name is Samuel Njoroge. Now, we need to have a conversation around the education sector, and we'll be taking a look at how COVID is shaping this particular sector moving forward. Before we even get to the issue of double enrollments next year, let's talk about tertiary institutions and whether or not they should reopen. If they do reopen, what will be the protocol to be embraced to aid in containing COVID-19 in the country? And if they will not be reopened, what is the plan moving forward? I've got Bernard Karanja, who's joining us by way of Zoom. He is the president, Kenyatta University Students Union, and this morning he's representing the university's President's Council. He is the Secretary General. Welcome to the program, Bernard. Good morning.
Good morning to you, Sam.
All right. I'm very sure you're privy to what the Cabinet Secretary has been saying when it comes to reopening tertiary institutions. You can begin by sharing with us your thoughts in as far as what the CS had to say.
To begin with, I think that if there is one inconsistent person, it is the CS Education. Professor Magoha has been saying this today and tomorrow changing and saying something different. The other day we saw him say that the universities should have a phased reopening. He goes ahead and forms a committee of 9 members to formulate guidelines on how institutions are going to open.
Yeah.
And then a few days later, he comes up and says that now again, we will not reopen. We are going to reopen in January. And even in that January, we are not sure whether people are going to open. A few days later, again, he says Magoha, the son of Magoha, and you can take this to the bank, I don't know what and what. The following day, he comes and says, the curve is flattening, we can reopen. He has been very, very inconsistent when it comes to matters of reopening, especially of tertiary institutions.
But can we blame him really, Bernard? Because COVID-19 is what it is. It's presenting this situation today, tomorrow it presents a different pattern. Can we blame him when it comes to what you're calling an inconsistency in communication and strategy?
If it's about COVID, let it be about COVID. If it is about something else, just make it what it is. Because for me, to us, and for me as a person, I feel it is not more about COVID. Because if it is about COVID, then we'll be looking at numbers. We will be talking in terms of how far are we in terms of flattening the curve. How many cases are we recording per day? How are the guidelines for MOH and guidelines for WHO? But this is not what he's referring to. He's referring to some other, I don't know what. That's why, as the University President's Council, we have come out and we have actually written a letter to the President asking that the Ministry of Education reconsiders its decision to have the institutions open in January.
We will be talking about that letter in a few, Bernard, but let's talk about these other issues you feel could be informing the decisions that the Ministry of Education is talking about, or is making rather. What are these other issues?
I don't know. I don't know if there is any other issue. Because why would you form a committee of 9 members, tell them to give you a report, and then never table the report to the President or to the nation?
Yeah, I'm hearing you. Continue.
Because if it is really about goodwill to have the universities and other tertiary institutions reopen, this committee that was formed, its report would have been tabled to the President and recommendations given. Stakeholders would have been involved. He would have called the University Vice Chancellor, for instance. He would have called a representative of Students' Union and again tried to look into how plausible it is for the universities to reopen. But up to now, I can ascertain that no student leader has been involved in whatsoever way in the matters of reopening of the university.
So your concern,
what is there for us?
So your concern largely is on participation and involvement. No one has brought you to the table to make your contribution, Bernard.
I tell you, it is wanting. The contribution, the stakeholders' participation is wanting. It has not been seen in the Ministry of Education. And that's why in the letter that we wrote to the President, we expressed our dissatisfaction and discontentment in the manner in which the Ministry of Education is being run. Because in some way we feel that decisions are made downwards. They make decisions and force them on people. They make decisions and force them on comrades. It is not good. We're supposed to come to the table, give our recommendations that we think this is the best way to go, and then evaluate everyone's recommendation and see the best way forward. But when it is up, downward, you make decisions institutions and say, this is what we have decided, and they're not negotiating, and you go ahead and tell us that you're Magoha, the son of Magoha. This Ministry of Education.
Fair point you make there, Bernard, but I don't know whether you're privy to the content of the Sarah Ruto-led commission that was supposed to look into the possibility of reopening schools moving forward in the wake of COVID-19. Do you think some of the issues that were raised in that particular report are actually valid enough to warrant schools and tertiary institutions not to reopen until next year?
Our concern, I don't want to talk about my concern because this is our concern as a university student president.
Yeah.
Our concern is why does the government, and particularly the Ministry of Education, think that while all other sectors can adhere to guidelines, to MOH guidelines and WHO guidelines, what would make them think that university students cannot? Because we are saying that it is more safer to be in a classroom than to be in a market. Because right now, these students are out there. They are trying to do their hustles. Some of them have become even conductors. Where are they safe? In the villages or in the universities. It is more safer for us to bring the students back. It is more safer for us to start thinking that while other sectors open, the university and the education sector can also reopen. So these are what we are trying to figure out. And if the Ministry of Education really values our voices, they should call us and let us tell them what we think. Because some right now we have final year medical students at home, people who would be otherwise next year helping the government to fight COVID-19. We have engineering students at home, final year students, people who would otherwise by next year would be helping the government to get solutions for COVID-19. Are we really serious?
Okay. Let's pursue yet another angle to this conversation, Bernard. And we've seen universities hold online graduations. And the plan has been, let's push as much as we can to online learning as we wait and see and contain COVID-19 in Kenya. What's the position of the council, the President's Council, when it comes to pursuing online platforms for education in tertiary institutions?
Our position again here is that we should have a blended mode. It is important to note that not everyone can be accommodated to do their studies online. There are technical courses that require, for instance, a clinical aspect. There are students who are taking courses like mine, pharmacy. How do you teach me pharmacy online? I'm supposed to be in the lab. I'm supposed to be doing my chemistry in the lab. It is not possible for me to do fully my learning online. It is not possible for any other student taking a technical course, such as medicine and engineering, industrial chemistry, and all those other courses. It is not possible for them to fully go online. That's why for us as a council, we are pushing for blended mode. Let the Ministry of Education allow for a phased reopening so that we have face-to-face, those who go face-to-face, the technical courses, and then we can have the others go the online way. And even this online way that we're talking about, how sure are we that we can accommodate everyone in that system? How about the student in Turkana who cannot access internet? How about the student who is using a Kaduda and doesn't have even a way of accessing WhatsApp, let alone the learning management system? So there are demerits to it. But for us, we are open, and we're saying that if only we can allow for a blended mode, where you have partial online, we have some doing online, and we have some doing face-to-face. And even those who are doing online, at times they come for face-to-face, and at times they are doing online. That's what we are advocating for, a blended mode, not a pure online classes, and not a pure online learning system.
As we speak, Bernard, I'm looking at the letter you wrote to the presidents as the university's President's Council, and my attention is drawn to the third point that you've raised, that you've lost hope in the Ministry of Education, and you feel that the intervention of the president in terms of decision making, especially for university education, is key. What is informing this line of thought amongst you?
When we began talking about reopening of institutions of the education sector, if you were keen enough, you'd have realized that the Ministry of Education was focusing on primary schools and secondary schools. it was not until very late they started talking about tertiary institutions. And all this time we were asking ourselves, what is it there? What do they have for us? What is their plan for the tertiary institutions? Much later, they began talking about university education. They began talking about how we can reopen the institution, and that's when they brought in the issue of phased reopening, which was, by the way, a proposal by the president, according to what we know. Now, starting from that point, the manner in which the education sector, the State Department for University Education, the manner in which they have handled the whole matter, we feel that it has been mismanaged. They really are not in touch with what is happening on the ground.
Yeah.
You tell people to go online, but you don't tell them how. So how do we know that what Kenyatta University is doing is quality? How do we know that whatever University of Nairobi is doing is quality? The decisions that are being made in the Ministry of Education and particularly the State Department for University Education, in our own view.
Bernard, allow me to interject kindly. We will be rectifying something about your sound so that we are clear on the conversation that we are having this morning. It's the top of the hour, 8 a.m. Thank you for being a part of the show. We're not winding up. We are taking a break, but we return with much more up, and including that conversation I was having with Bernard. So stay tuned for that and interact with us. Hashtag Good Morning Kenya online.
Ngimache gas kabwatutikuk, ngimache iyat muguleldang'ung, ngimache imong'ugei, nyangebe kiputinai. Lale, kimi kibagenge, Kitwek FM kikosin, Kitwek FM kikosin, Kitwek FM kikosin.
98.0 Kitwek FM Kegosin.
Thank you so much for being a part of Good Morning Kenya. We tell you this is the only way to start your day, and we ain't tripping, as Jane would say. Now, we were earlier on having a conversation with Bernard Karanja. He's the Secretary General of the University's President's Council on some of the concerns they have with the way the Ministry of Education is handling tertiary institutions in the country. Bernard, thank you for being with us this far.
Yes, thank you, Sam.
Right, and welcome back. Now, earlier on, you were making a point about how you feel tertiary institutions have been left out when it comes to formulating a protocol to reopen them. Kindly exhaust on that point.
So, the other thing that we are really thinking about is when the universities were told that they can now start preparing for reopening, they were given the opportunity to formulate their own guidelines and to try fitting in the WHO and the Ministry of Health guidelines. And all the institutions across the country started. I have been in touch with almost all the university presidents. And these people, they know that, and they are privy to the information that is happening on the university senate. That the senate and other committees have been formed to work on the guidelines and the return, the formula to the institution. Then the Ministry of Education was supposed to go around inspecting these universities, knowing which one is ready to reopen and which one is not. But before they could even start visiting the institution, I remember they had visited at least, I think, 3 institutions when they were coming up with a decision that universities are not ready to reopen. And that's when they gave the proposal that we reopen in January. So which are these institutions that really informed this decision? Why would you inspect only 3 institutions and then draw a conclusion that the universities are not ready to reopen? Did they go to Kenyatta University for inspection? Did they go to Multimedia for inspection? Did they go to which universities exactly? Because you cannot go to just 3 universities out of the close to 50 universities that we have in Kenya and then make a conclusion that people are not ready to reopen.
In the defense of the Ministry of Education, and this is subject to information we are consuming in the dailies this morning, Education Cabinet Secretary George Mogoha says that for the past 8 days, education officials have been touring tertiary institutions in the country. Have you been involved in these particular tours, and if so, what has been your contribution?
We've not been involved. That's why we are saying that the participation of stakeholders is wanting. And Makiu, you are saying that in the past 8 days, when did the Ministry of Education make the decision that the universities should reopen in January and not in September as it had been proposed? It was not 8 days ago, it was, I think, 2 weeks ago, or even more than 2 weeks ago, meaning that they started touring when they had already made the decision that we are not going to reopen. Why would you make a decision that you're not going to reopen when you've not really gone for the inspection? That's why in that letter that we wrote to the president, we're expressing our dissatisfaction in the manner in which the whole situation is being handled. First of all, inspect. Go at least to half the universities, and then from there you can say people are not ready. But not 3 universities and then just make a decision that you're not ready to reopen. It is not making.
Okay, let me make reference to what Professor Kiama Getahi said. That is the Vice Chancellor, University of Nairobi. And it seems to be the thinking around the commission that is looking into, the Sarah Ruto-led commission that is looking into reopening of schools, that when it comes to ECD centers and universities, the risk of double enrollment presents a unique challenge in containing COVID-19. What's your thought on this, Bernard?
Pardon? I didn't get that quite right.
The question is, double enrollments in tertiary institutions and ECD centers present a particular unique challenge when it comes to containing COVID-19. From your point of view, is this valid?
Yes, to some point it is valid. Yes, to some point it is valid. But again, how many institutions does the situation affect? Because I feel the situation that we are talking about here is only limited to very few universities, not all the universities across the country. So again, it is a matter of looking at everything, looking at all the institutions on a level ground, put everyone on a level ground, know what problems are particular to what universities, what problems are particular to what institution. Not you take just one thing and then generalize. You see, the problem that we're having right now is generalization. We are looking at, because KU cannot be able to do this, then all the other universities cannot be able to. Because UN cannot be able to do this, then everyone else will not be able to. That is the problem. Let us go into particular details, know which institution. Let us take this situation as per university, but not taking just one problem and then applying it across the board.
And you know what the cabinet secretary said? That every decision we are making is in the interest of our children. We cannot open institutions until we are sure that they are safe. What does this say when it comes to infrastructure in our tertiary institutions? How is that, Bernard?
That is very nice. It is very nice when we know that someone is out looking for us. Someone is taking care of our interests. But again, let us not use this to close the institutions forever. Because you say that today, and then tomorrow you say that you're not even sure that you're going to reopen in January. So when are we going to reopen? What we are looking for here is certainty. We are looking for certainty. We want to know that for sure at this particular time, this is what we will be doing. It is good for him to protect us. It is good for him to say all those nice things. But where are we exactly?
But you see now,
you're protecting people who are meeting in Kamkunjis at home. You're saying that these people you're protecting them from going back to the university, yet they're out there in the market.
it's true, and I hear you, sir, but isn't the reasoning of government valid then? Because they're supposed to do their job, then you do your job in terms of keeping safe. So when you look at the situation as it is, how certain is it? Because you say we are not certain. It's not certain. And nobody is certain about containing COVID-19. So how is that going to work out for you?
Exactly that. I think we are now coming to the point that we are trying to make. It is not certain when we'll be able to contain COVID, but it is very, very certain how preventative measures can be put in place, how people can be pushed to stick to guidelines and adhere to those guidelines. So the point here is, let us have the guidelines in place, and let us have people in faces start reopening, and then see how we can be able to make sure that the guidelines are followed. For instance, Ben, we have people, now speaking for my institution, that were supposed to sit for an exam a week before by the time we were closing, in a week's time before the time we were closing. These people are supposed just to come, sit for their exams, and then wait for graduation. Why don't the ministry allow for people to slowly come, maybe have the finalists come sit for their exam, have the third years come sit for the exam in phases? How many fourth years does an institution have? Even if we say we are going to put 2 meters distance, not even 1 meter, if we say we are going to keep a 2 meter distance, we'll be able to do those exams. We'll be able to have people come here for face-to-face.
Yeah.
So, when we are applying these guidelines, let us not be selective. Let the ministry not be selective. Let us not doubt our ability to be able to stick to those guidelines. Because what is in doubt right now is whether we can be able to stick to those guidelines.
Okay.
And the only sure way is if we try with the phase 3 opening.
Now, all said and done, you've written a letter to the president. Have you engaged the Ministry of Education? And if so, what has been their response?
Today at 9 a.m., we are dropping a petition at the Parliament building and also to the Ministry of Education officially expressing and giving our recommendations as to what we think should be the way forward. And we hope that they are really going to respond. By the time we were writing that letter, our greatest discontentment was that they are not involving us in what we're supposed to do. They are not calling us on the table and letting us give us their recommendations. So for today, we want to table a petition to the Parliament, to the both houses, the Senate, and the National Assembly, and then also drop a petition to the Ministry of Education, and we hope that they're going to take into consideration what we are recommending.
Bernard Karanja, the Secretary General, Universities President's Council, thank you so much for your time this morning and for sharing with us your concern when it comes to the way the Ministry of Education is handling tertiary institutions. And you know what? Even in the wake of this particular conversation, the World Bank has sent $2 billion to build more classrooms and other amenities in financially challenged schools. And this money is part of $8 billion that is set to go towards the schools within the next 6 years. Now, the education sector, just as health, tourism, and entrepreneurship, will be one of those that will be a key focus for us as we continue coverage on COVID-19 and the recovery plan moving forward. But thank you so much for that engagement. Thank you for finding time to join us for this particular conversation. The show is Good Morning Kenya. You can see right behind me, the only way to start your day. And now would like to get a traffic update from Jane Wamboi. Take it away, Jane.
I'm going to try to be as good as how Doreen does it, but don't judge me. Sam, turn around, look the other side, stare at the wall until we are back to you. But let's just start with, let's have a look at Langata Road and how it's looking this morning. We'll look at Langata Road and Mombasa Road. Let's go as far back as the Bomas of Kenya roundabout. Right there on your screen. There we go. As you can see, remember every roundabout is always busy, and that is the norm anywhere. And if you speed at a roundabout, you really need to go for your refresher classes. But looking at that roundabout right there, a bit busy, but not on the heavier side. As you join the Langata Road from Magadi Road, not looking too bad this morning. Those who are coming from areas of Rongai, Kiserian, trying to come into the city, you won't have a hard time from the Bomas of Kenya roundabout right there. Going past the Langata Cemetery, looking good, nothing to report so far. Past the Langata police station, there are bumps past that Kamini roundabout there, which explains the difference in color right there. But that is nothing that is going to take it won't take much of your time. Still keeping up with Langata Road as you approach the Langata Hospital Junction. Looking beautiful this morning. Nothing to report there. That is going to be time consuming as you go past the Southern Bypass Junction right there. Looking good. Nothing to report there. Still continuing with Langata Road. As we approach the areas around Carnivore, not looking bad. Again, the difference in colors that you get to see on your screens. And this is this side, the side of the road on the top left of your screen. There are also bumps and ramps at that point where there is a change of color. So that explains that. But continuing with Langata Road, as you go past Sunshine Secondary School, looking beautiful. So if you haven't left your home this morning and you are along these areas of Langata Road, you won't have a hard time up until we get to the T-Mall roundabout. Looking beautiful, beautiful this morning. It is 8:15 a.m. So you can leave your house if you are using Langata Road up until T-Mall. The stretch between T-Mall and the Madaraka roundabout also looking so good this morning. My Langata Road people, you're going to have a breeze as you try to make your way into a town. And also looking at the stretch between Madaraka roundabout up until the Nyayo roundabout. That's where things now sort of start to change. The conversation shifts a bit, but is nothing that will be having you there for too long. And of course, this is expected as you approach any roundabout. And the same situation is on Eridom Road as an alternative from the Madaraka roundabout straight to the Bunyala roundabout, looking busy. And it's actually Eridom Road is worse off as opposed to using the stretch between Madaraka and Langata. But let's go back and look at Mbagathi Way as an alternative for my Langata Road people. Let us see how Mbagathi Way is looking. So there on your screen, at the center of your screen, that is the T-Mall roundabout. And let us go towards the bottom left, that is Mbagathi Way right there. Both sides looking beautiful. Remember, green means it's a go, and you can actually relate these colors to how, traffic lights operate. Green means go, orange or looking, it's get ready to go, red, stand still, and in this case, we also have maroon, which means parking lot. Now, looking at Mbagathi Way, as you join Mbagathi Way, it is good up until you get to the high-rise junction where traffic seems to build up slowly, moving very slowly. We have stretches here and there where it moves, where it comes to a standstill. When you get to the around areas when you're trying to join the branch off to go to Mbagathi Hospital, there is traffic, but getting back to the road from there, areas of Ngumo, traffic all the way. Now from there, from Medina Center, it seems to be an absolute parking lot up until the city mortuary roundabout. So if you're using Bagathi Way, you will be there a bit longer, as opposed to if you choose to use the Uhuru Highway, or rather the Madaraka Nyayo stretch to try and get to the city. So that is what we're going to just look at right now. But remember, we do this at the top of every hour. We will be letting you know how things are looking on Mombasa Road. I was meant to do Mombasa Road, but we'll do that when we come back from at the top of the hour, the next link up segment. But for now, we want to continue with the day's discussion. Remember, as I had mentioned earlier in the intro, today we're going to be continuing with this discussion that we started yesterday about the film industry. And yesterday we had with us in studio the CEO of the Kenya Film Commission, Mr. Timothy Owase, just letting us know how things are moving so far, how we are adjusting as a country, as a group of creatives to this tough times that we are in, that is, this pandemic. Very unpredictable, very volatile, and we have to find a way that everyone is moving forward and no one is left behind, and especially the creatives who have been thrown into a state of disarray because of there are no gigs to attend to. There's a very limited production going on. So today we want to continue with that discussion and get to hear from someone who is in the field, a filmmaker who has been doing this for so long, and just to understand how the situation has changed during this time. And joining us via Zoom right now, we have Lydia Matata, who is a producer and a director. Hi, Lydia, and good morning.
Hi, good morning. How are you?
Good to have you. And, before we even get deeper into this conversation, just tell us, looking at this time that we have been in this pandemic, how have things changed, at least for you? What have you experienced?
For me, I've experienced a halt in production, actually going on set, as you are right now. I was to produce and direct a film in April. It got moved to October. We might actually have to shoot in January, and it's just a matter of juggling two things. Is making a film or producing a film more important than the safety of cast and crew at this time? And for my particular set, it was going to be a closed set with not just the main cast, but several extras and several crew members.
Having a conversation about how, looking at the film industry, it is considered as one of the most informal. It's considered very informal, and yet it plays a very critical role, especially during this pandemic that we are in. When it comes to formalizing the film industry, what are your thoughts in that?
I think basically it needs to be more education in targeting filmmakers in terms of things like if you are calling yourself an independent filmmaker, what does that structure look like? Is it a sole proprietorship? Can you get into partnership with someone? Can you get into a limited liability company? Kind of having that information, because most of us, even when you have, for those even few who've had an educational background in film, the only thing you might be taught is how to make a film, and all those things, pre-production, production, and post-production. You're not necessarily taught about the business side of things, and that will really help to kind of help us move forward, not just as creatives, but as business creatives as well.
And also when it comes to just highlighting the fact that film and other forms of entertainment play a key role to any country's economy. What do you think we need to do as a people to just try and change this narrative that people have about, and now looking at the society and not the relevant bodies, that people have about film and it being just a casual industry as opposed to a part of the economy?
I think firstly is maybe changing the phrasing. It's not the entertainment industry per se, it's the cultural industry. And if you look at other countries, if you look at the US, one of the informal diplomacies is actually the films that they make. If you're a millennial like me, a lot of the films that you watched in the past, Rambo was communicating something about the US and Cold War, or right now films that inform on Black Lives Matter,
Yes.
or films that inform on gender rights, and of course still having films that are entertaining and all that, but there are cultural archives. They represent who we are, they represent the experiences that we are having. And if we kind of looked at it that way and not just as entertainment, as representative of who we are, both our outward and inward way of looking at things and exploring things and things, then it would have a bigger impact. But of course, we do have to, I think there has to be kind of support that strong cultural economies have, that we have to see that now, where it is a thing of both public institutions supporting cultural material, private organizations, private individuals, for example, those who give endowment and grants, and then as well as also us working to really market and reach people in even the fastest of communities with our work.
All right. And now coming to you as, a producer, a director, and a cinematographer, maybe just paint a picture for us, looking at the Kenyan environment for our filmmakers. Paint a picture for us how your journey has been over the years that you have been practicing.
So for me, I had actually transitioned from a journalist to become a filmmaker. Kind of wanted to take the issues that I was covering as a journalist and kind of express them in a different, more creative way. And I was very much obsessed with documentary filmmaking.
Okay.
And I think my transition, and everybody comes to film differently, but it kind of also showed the state of film in a way I didn't know where I could go and learn how to become a filmmaker. There were very few institutions at that time, like 5-7 years ago, where I could go to. It was either going abroad, which I couldn't afford, and so I ended up learning online, watching documentaries, doing like the free tutorials on screenwriting or documentary filmmaking, and taking a bit of my savings and making a film on my own with the assistance of a cinematographer friend at that time. And luckily enough, when I got into film, when I had just completed a very bad teaser trailer, Ocubox, the East African Documentary Film Fund, had just done its second call out. And I was able to apply, and I got into a workshop. I really understood what it entails to make a good documentary, and I was supported to continue to develop my project. And I learned through that workshop and through going back into the field and making the film, being critiqued by mentors, talking to more programs after that, and this is in terms of documentary filmmaking. And in terms of fiction, there was a program called Maisha Lab.
All right, Lydia, allow me to cut you short right there. We just need to fix your audio just a bit. A few issues happened. Of course, this is live TV, but we will be getting back to that conversation, just understanding how her journey has been so far. As she has mentioned, she transitioned into this film field that she is in right now. But that is the conversation that we're going to be continuing with, so keep it here. Remember, the hashtag is still Good Morning Kenya on Twitter. My handle is the Genuine Boy. We welcome your questions, especially if you are a creative out there and in this film industry more specifically. We started this conversation yesterday with the CEO of the Kenya Film Commission, and today we get to hear from one of the stakeholders of this industry. Do stay with us. We'll be right back.
KBC, in collaboration with the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development, is broadcasting enhanced out-of-class learning on radio, television, and online. Catch the lessons every weekday on KBC Channel 1 from 2 to 4 p.m., on KBC English Service and 15 FM from 9:15 a.m. to 5 p.m., and Radio Taifa from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. KBC English Service, Radio Taifa, and 15 FM are also available countrywide on the free-to-air Signet digital TV platform, or log on to www.kbc.co.ke for live streaming, or download the KBC online app on Google Play Store. Kenya Broadcasting Corporation, ensuring learning no matter what.
On the next episode,
many questions have been asked about the Galana Food Security Project. A project that was launched by President Uhuru Kenyatta to help in feeding the nation.
Kazi yangu ambayo nimetegemea sana hapa ni kupanda.
Can anything good come from Galana?
Hiyo pesa itatusaidia kama mimi na mamangu.
Hii kazi imenisaidia kwa mapato, napata chakula.
Watch it on Thursday at 8:30 p.m. only on KBC Channel 1.
gear up and maintain a healthy, fit and active lifestyle right there at home by keeping up with Gear Up on Channel 1, 5:30 to 6 a.m. Monday to Saturday. Gear Up every day for every moment, and remember to stay home and keep safe. Tonight on KBC Channel 1.
He saved me. He rushed to save me. I didn't think he would.
Of course he would. You're the mother of his child.
So that's why he did it.
I should count for something.
No. It shows I'm a fool for believing that he did it because it was me.
Their job is to give you the best case scenario. So what if I believe them and then I have to watch her dying all over again?
What do you mean, dying all over again?
Tonight on KBC Channel 1.
She told me, what you tell yourself? Don't give him your love for free. Make him spend time and loyalty on you. You'll tell them, warn them, teach them, reach them.
Them say what them say, promise everything okay. No matter what one girl, my always be there.
You that you're the one, and you give me something serious. Oh, you got me curious.
Staying with us, we continue with this discussion all about the film industry, and with us via Zoom we have Lydia Matata, who is a producer, a director, and a cinematographer. And she was, before the break, we were just talking about, you know, how your journey has been during this time, and especially over the years when you have been practicing as a filmmaker. Please continue, Lydia.
As I was saying, it has been a series of workshops and opportunities for funding, which I'm very grateful for, from both local and international entities, but all of them are private during the years that I've been practicing. So a series of workshops on making films, pitching your films, funding that actually allows you to go back and learn on the job, making very many errors in real time as well. So learning through failure is also really an important aspect of our work. And I think that's reflective of the Kenyan, or even let me say even the East African film market, where you have there are opportunities for funding, but majority of them are private. And then when you look at kind of when you're trying to apply for or pitch a film internationally, very few are specific to African filmmakers or East African filmmakers or Kenyan filmmakers rather. So we have a very small pool of opportunities to apply for, to actually get films actualized. And film it's a very expensive endeavor in the long run.
Yeah, and looking at that, would you say that issues to do with quality and the lack of some of this infrastructure could be contributing to this lack of funding just being readily available to the filmmakers in Kenya?
Yes, I agree, because if you look at for example, like just South Africa, I think they have the DTI, the Department of Industry and Trade, offers funding. I think they have another specific fund for film and television production.
Yes.
And some other bodies of things, like they will have several film festivals. They have several film markets where they can pitch to not just state or private actors in South Africa, but they're actually exposed to a lot of international funding or co-production or distribution or sales opportunities. And what that does as well, someone also needs a chance to make a bad film, like a couple of bad films, like as a young person. And you kind of slowly learn, okay, by the way, that's where the camera should have positioned. That's why I have to use this lighting. That's why sound is important. I remember I didn't have actual sound on my first teaser trailer that I pitched.
Yes.
And I actually learned there's a difference between camera sound and the one for the mic. And those things need to happen so that slowly by slowly someone can build up and actually make the film that they were meant to make. And they need to be supported to be able to do that, for them to afford the lighting, the camera, to pay their talent, to feed their talent on set and all those things. When you look at the cost, it's a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
And for them to be able, and again, not just the filming not just the filming, the editing. You're talking about VFX, color grading, sound design, all those things. And then for it to reach people, as we were speaking of earlier, how can communities be more engaged? Marketing and development.
All right.
Is a whole nother cost on its own. Yeah.
Now, before we get to some of the projects that you guys are working on, looking at the film industry, and you have mentioned, the support that is really needed to just change, especially the environment for the filmmakers here in Kenya. What form of investment and support do you think is vital to ensure that the film industry continues to grow and maintain a certain level of quality and standards for all films that come from Kenya?
Grants are very, very important, both coming from state, both coming from private organizations like DocuBox, but DocuBox, and even like, private individuals. Abroad you have people who really support the arts, whether it is by buying patrons of the art, by paintings. You have foundations that actually support filmmakers and all those things. And you can even be like specific to, you want to help filmmakers from a marginalized community. All those things are very, very important. And then, of course, opportunities for learning, like just strengthening institutions where people can get education. So grants will also help that person to make a film. Education will also help them to learn some of the things that will also help them just be kind of stronger on set, have a background. Yes. Although, of course, not necessarily important, as there's a huge debate where you have a lot of strong, good filmmakers who did not go to film school and those who didn't. But I think a mixture of that will help, and constant workshops and all these things outside filmmakers for all different backgrounds.
All right. Now, let's come to some of the projects that you have worked on previously leading to what is going to be launched in the foreseeable hours or so. Tell us about that.
So in just a few hours at 11 a.m. on the Sema Story Facebook page, I'll be having the online premiere of a short documentary that I produced and directed and did a bit of cinematography on. But the other main cinematographer is called Mwakesi Mwakale. He's also the editor of the film. So the film focuses on an amazing woman called Vivian Gaiko.
Mhm.
Vivian Gaiko is the founder of the Empower Mama Foundation that seeks to support one of its core mandates is supporting parents who've gone through pregnancy and infant child loss, and basically addressing the stigma around grieving for a child. There is a term that sometimes people commonly use when someone is grieving the loss of a pregnancy or an infant child. Utapata mwingine, you will get another one, which is the title of the film. And why I used this phrase, it was something that it was commonly referred to it was a common phrase used while I was making the film of something that parents are told, utapata mwingine, you will get another one. And the idea is you can get over the grief of a child by simply getting another one and replacing that lost life with this other child that you have had. And that kind of points to a larger issue, not allowing people to grieve a loss for however long and however deeply that they have to. Compounds that problem, leads to complicated grief, leads to larger mental health complications.
Yes.
Yes, and doesn't necessarily help them get over their grief in the first place. Yeah.
That is such a powerful story that you have taken on there. And, we do hope that, the message that you're hoping to send across actually gets across. And, we need to change the way we take things. We shouldn't be taking such things so casually. Now, as we draw the conversation to a close, when it comes to appreciating filmmakers and, the films that we get to put out there, looking at the society and the people, what more do we need to change, especially now looking at this particular case where you are using film to tell a story of some of the ills and the evils that are in society, looking at film as a mirror of the society?
I think it's a two-way street. We filmmakers have to find ways to reach everyone. Let's not make it specific to a certain cinema that might be away from, people of certain economic means, although of course a cinema run is important. What's happened right now with the virtual film screenings has been very important in reaching everybody within their homes. So COVID has actually impacted us positively.
Yes.
But also for us to be all engaged as audience, as private organizations, as public organizations.
Mm-hmm.
You can support a film by watching it. You can support a filmmaker by funding or giving them, like, for example, a camera if you have it. You can support, a filmmaker through a workshop and mentorship, and just the understanding that this is not just entertainment. These are our cultural archival material.
Mm-hmm.
And without those stories, you literally don't have a country, because we are the stories that we tell.
All right. Now, and also
That's how we
for
exist.
maybe those who are, might not be able to join you for the launch, but they would love to just interact with you as a cinematographer, as a director, the producer, and especially the younger folk who are looking to join this film industry. How can they be able to interact with you to just get to learn from you? And, you could be a mentor starting from here. I'm
Lydia Matata across all my socials. My film studio, my film company is called Film and Laundry. So
Mhm.
you can go to it's called the Film and Laundry Company, but you can reach us on filmandlaundry.com, and our email addresses are here. And reach out. We help each other grow by helping each other grow. So
All right. Thank you so much, Lydia. We wish you all the best as you continue on with this journey to change the narrative and the spirit about filmmaking here in Kenya.
Okay, thank you.
All
very
right.
much. Thank you for your time.
Absolutely. That is Lydia Matata. She is a producer, she is a director, and a cinematographer, one of the stakeholders in the film industry. And of course, this is pegging off, or rather, coming on the background of the conversation that we had yesterday in regards to the film industry here in Kenya, and the whole question about formalizing the film industry to just start by changing the environment that we have here compared to other states. Film is more appreciated, and that is a conversation that we started yesterday, and we are going to be having a series in regards to this particular topic. Sam,
Yes, James.
Watagwan.
That
What?
was so unceremonious. Watagwan Walan Shata. Am I getting it right?
All right, no.
Sawa.
That is hey. That that is Sam in my background, but he is coming to us in a bit. But remember, we have a viewpoint coming up all about the political sins and, you know, the shenanigan that is going on when it comes to politics. All that and so much more is coming right here with the viewpoint. But any questions, comments that you may be having that you want to direct to Sam, feel free to use the hashtag Good Morning Kenya, pale Twitter, at JMoboy, at Sam W. Njoroge. Those are our social handles. And of course, we welcome you to be part of this discussion. Do stay with us. We'll be right back.
Welcome to yet another segment on Code 254. My name is Joanne Murugi. Cancer is ranked third as a killer disease after infectious diseases and cardiovascular diseases. But is the public aware of the risks associated with this deadly disease? We hit the streets of Nairobi to find out.
I don't think the government has taken the war against cancer seriously. And I wanted to allow me to compare it to the HIV awareness, which used to be a very serious problem in the 80s and in the 90s. But since the government took it seriously, it has really been neutralized, and people are not really suffering from it because they know how to avoid being infected, they know how to treat it, even though there is no cure, but they know how to handle themselves when they are sick with HIV. But when coming to cancer, it's a very serious disease. Personally, I've been hit by the cancer story because my mother-in-law died of cancer, and I was closer to her, and I could see it was serious, but it was very clear that there was no solution at all. There was no cure, there was no even treatment. What we used to carry from Kenyatta was actually just a plastic bag full of painkillers. But at the end of the day, we were being told by the doctors that this lady will die soon.
I think so, but I still feel like it's still limited in the interior areas. I don't think guys are that aware of the way things are going on. I don't feel like, okay, I feel like it's only to a chosen few, because you still find people are dying not knowing that they have it. People don't know that you can actually go and get tested because they still feel like it's a bit too expensive. And I think with the way we need to like work on our SDGs on making, on health and everything, that's something that should be done. Like, it's not even, we shouldn't be pleading the government or even we ourselves, the people who know, we should be doing that for ourselves and making people know that cancer is real and they can actually go get tested and everything should move.
Mostly kwa village kabisa huko ndani utapata kuna watu wengi ambao bado hawajui kuna cancer kwa hii country. Until wapatwe na cancer, waende hospitali wapatwe na cancer, ndio watakuwa wanajua kumbe hii ugonjwa ina exist.
I think they have created awareness about it, but they're not doing anything about it. People are still living in the same lifestyle as they were.
We have not done enough. Yeah. You see, the awareness we are creating nowadays, mostly on towns, on urban centers, but they are back in local areas. We don't reach those people. Yeah. You get that when somebody has cancer in the urban, say rural areas, they need to come to towns. Yeah, it's when they get to know about these things, the processes, and how they can help themselves towards that. So creating awareness, we should do it more, even in rural areas.
Government has not yet improved the facilities in the hospitals, even the doctors. If you find somebody sick, we just have to drive him or her to India. So which means we don't have the doctors, enough doctors, and also awareness. It has not been created fully.
Kila msi anajua kuhusu cancer sahi na kila mtu anajua hizi message za kwenda kusikia.
Nyako, kindly test with me kwanza. 1 2 mic testing. 1 2 1 2 1 2. 2 unani mic 2 mic. Ani mimi. Unaipata Nyako?
Those who are in the ground to know more about the cancer.
I do believe that there is enough cancer awareness. For instance, where I used to work in an NGO, and I will see our employers bring people who had enough knowledge on cancer, and they would be taken through the cancer awareness. So I believe the country that has done enough cancer awareness for now, because also when you go to the hospitals, you find the pamphlets on the cancer. So yeah, I believe that they have done enough cancer awareness.
I don't think there's enough awareness about cancer in Kenya, but with time, when the infrastructure is put in place and the mechanisms for making the awareness will be there, people will get to know more about cancer, and yeah, there will be systems to tell people how to deal with such cases.
In fact, to people who are having hospitals, it has turned into a business. That's what they are doing. When they see someone sick with cancer, they know that business has come in, and that's all they want to do about it. They don't tell us, they don't even talk to those people who are already sick on how they can go and talk to others who are already sick but are not aware. So there is no awareness being done, and the government has really let us down on the fight against cancer.
Tonight on KBC Channel 1.
Father, I had decided to give my love another chance, and I consented to this marriage.
Princess Ahankara is soft-hearted. She thinks that Brother Sushim has changed. But I don't know, how do I tell her that not to trust him?
Tonight on KBC Channel 1.
You have no reason to be seeing this guy.
I don't understand. It's not a big deal.
We're simply talking.
Don't think I'm a fool, Francisco. I know what you're doing. You're trying to win her back. Do you think I'm blind
That's
or
enough,
what?
Ramon.
What is Pedro doing with Juana?
You better not start snooping around. I need to be very careful with him. Hello.
Mr. Medina, I am calling from the International Mercantile Bank. I just wanted to confirm that a deposit of $400,000 has been made to her account.
Thank you.
El paraíso
In love with Ramon.
Imani ni bayana ya mambo yanayotarajiwa. Unayaita mambo yasiyokuwepo kama yalipo. Imani ni kuchukua umbo la kitu unachokitamania ima kwa mbali au kwa karibu. Lakini ijapo katika mambo ya kuhatikia, basi unajibunia mambo hayo mwenyewe. Lingine muhimu ni kuwa iwapo hauipendi barabara unayoitembelea, basi
kupata imani yako bonyeza *811 *815 #. Bonyeza *811 *815 #.
Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for keeping it Good Morning Kenya. My name is Samuel Njoroge. Do you see this thing? Akia Wasichana. Take a look at what they've given me this morning. And I'm just saying, it's the only way to start your day, people. And thank you so much for being a part of the show. My name is Samuel Njoroge. Karibu sana to the program. #Good Morning Kenya. It's Wednesday, and what we do today is that we lay focus on the political issues, as Jane would call them, shenanigans, the audacity, on the things that are weighing in on this country, politically speaking. Every Wednesday, I usually have the pleasure of hosting Dr. Rutich, Alex Manyasi, as well as Hamisi Mboga. Dr. Rutich, karibu sana to the program. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah, let's begin by getting your brain on this COVID funds crunch and everything that's going on in between. What's your political viewpoint on it?
I think talking of the COVID-19 misappropriation of funds, it is the most dangerous thing that has really happened in our country.
Mm-hmm.
Because talking of COVID-19, which is actually a pandemic, I can say corruption in this country is drifting towards the second pandemic after COVID-19.
I thought it was the first, though, Dr. Rutich. We've been dealing with this pandemic for the longest time ever.
You see why I'm talking about being the second? I refer the second because it doesn't kill faster than the COVID.
But it has a faster vaccine, no?
There is no vaccine.
Go on.
So the issue of corruption in this country is something that is alarming, and it is something that should not be allowed to continue. It is something that the country must act on it or against it head on. If we have to maintain our name and walk head high as the Republic of Kenya.
I'm a bit skeptical about that point about holding our head high. Yeah. I mean, this purge and surge and pandemic, as you call it, corruption, has been weighing on the country for a very long time. But when you monitor the narrative, even as it's being reported, who exactly is fooling who here?
I think when you look at the whole scenario of the misappropriation of funds, and I tell you without any iota of doubt, that corruption is in this country is heading professional, or rather it is becoming professional. And corruption in this country is moving away from kitu kidogo to kitu kubwa. That is actually threatening to remove us from the, because you talk about the money that was meant to save their lives.
Yeah.
The money that was meant to provide protection to the majority of Kenyans. You talk of PPEs, which is quite necessary for the frontline doctors.
Yeah.
And now the same doctors are missing the PPEs, the same doctors are missing what they're supposed to be having. Not even their own, their allowances that they should have, because they sometimes work for more hours. At the moment, we are talking about strikes that are happening in our health facilities. What do we mean when we are supposed to be having these frontliners being in their facilities on time? They are away because of the corrupt hand of some corrupt few in this country.
Where are our priorities? And you know, Dr. William Ruto has been milking this one dry. And I'll just begin by taking quotes that have been, reported across all dailies. You can see this is the Star, this is the Nation, this is the Standard, which I'm making reference to. And this is what Dr. William Ruto had to say, that they told us we should ignore what was happening at KEMSA, and that there was nothing wrong with some newly registered suspect companies being awarded tenders worth billions. Come back from Jubilee Vice Chair David Murathe that if you live in a glass house, don't you dare throw stones. What the Deputy President is doing is to divert attention from the issue. What is hard in letting authorities investigate this matter? At that point, we bring in Alex Manyasi. Good morning, Alex. Thank you for joining us.
Morning, Samuel. Good to join you this morning as well.
Great to have you on the show as well. Kindly bring in your viewpoint when it comes to the issue around COVID cash, the investigations that are ongoing, and some of the political intrigues that ensue courtesy of it.
Yeah, that's what happens when the opposition joins government and the government joins the opposition. So that is what is going on. However, if you look at corruption, corruption is an economic issue. Corruption is a political issue, and corruption is also a social issue. And I can expound on that in terms of why what is going on should worry all of us.
Go ahead.
It worries all of us because if I look at it from a political angle, it means that what corruption does is when you steal money and huge sums of money, these are the same people that influence people who get into office if they're not in office already. And if they're not in office already, then it means that is what they influence the electorate to remain in office, because elections are expensive. So that's one. So the people who pick public money are usually used by people who are either in office or are going to run in office shortly. And that's why in Kenya we have always seen that just to run up to the election, every time you see people involved in corruption, the next thing you're going to see is that you're going to see them running for public office.
Yeah.
So that's how political it is. I say it's an economic issue because if COVID was to kill someone, and that someone who may not have been killed if we had the right PPEs and the right medication and that person was taken care of, then it means that that family of that person is going to languish in poverty, and that's how it becomes an economic issue. It also becomes an economic issue because we get to divert money that was meant for other purposes to go and serve the same purpose for which the money that we have stolen was supposed to cover.
Yeah.
So that's how economic it is. And of course, by extension, it means that we're going to raise our taxes. It means you're going to make our country not competitive for doing business. And that's how we have been seeing businesses move from Kenya to other countries. That's an economic issue. And lastly, it is a social issue because, firstly, that's how we make our people poor. And by making our people poor, what that happens is that we make everybody a beggar. In the process, we do not grow the economy. We have very many people becoming addicts of alcohol and others. And we increase the violence that we are seeing in communities and what we are seeing even in homes, where people are saying that because people have lost jobs, people have become disoriented, and therefore there's a lot of social violence happening at the home level and at a community level.
And
so corruption has a direct implication on all those three things. And this is a discussion that we can discuss the whole day.
And coming at a time when we can't even agree on how to share revenue, but we can afford all this intrigue around COVID cash and how we manage our coffers. But let's talk a little bit about how the Deputy President is positioning himself courtesy of this scandal. And I would like to pick your brain on it, Dr. Rotich. We've seen him there are those who are saying that he's now trying to sanitize himself, use this opportunity to milk it dry. What's your viewpoint, Daktari?
I think if I'm right, to quote what the Deputy President actually elaborated, he champions the fight against corruption. But what he was saying those who are speaking now against corruption seems to have lowered their tone against the vice. Are you getting? Seems to have lowered their tone against the vice.
Yeah.
And then what he also said is that if people were to take political responsibility, if people were to was to be asked to step aside, if people were to be asked to do all sorts of things to enable a rational investigation to be done.
Yeah.
He said that those who actually responded against the latest culprits or alleged corrupt individuals seems to be having, or rather enjoying, some protection from some quarters. They seem to be, those who have been the proponent of the same seems to be talking not very loudly the way they were talking, but now their expression seems to be compromising. That was his expression, because he never said that the devices should, he said that this should not be done selectively. It should not be done politically.
But what should inform that line of thought? Why would, of all other things he would say, why decide to use that line of thought when it comes to this COVID intrigue?
You see, let me tell you, my brother, the whole thing has been, the fight against corruption in this country has been slowed so much with the issues to do with politicizing the whole process. Once we remove politics in the whole process of investigation, selective way of investigation, selective way of approach, that will be the time, that will be the beginning of the fight against the vice itself.
So you are saying that there is selective approach
I'm not saying that. What I'm saying, the approach in fighting the corruption must be a neutral, must be non-partisan, must be equal for all citizens. If you are corrupt, you are corrupt.
Which is true, Daktari. But in light of his messaging, there are people who feel like, umeingililiwa for long. Now you're using this opportunity to tell people, by the way, anzeni kuingililia wale pia. Doesn't that then bite him at the foot, at the arm, at the end of the day, politically speaking?
No, look at his mind. Look at his mind, the way he was expressing. He said, somehow, those who have been proponents of the same vice are now toning down. They have a different soft language. They seem to have baptized the process by calling a better name, a name that is better heard, and not the original name of a corrupt person or a thief.
Yeah, that has even been highlighted. They are calling themselves merchants,
I like that.
You know, no one is actually talking about corruption per se. But let me bring in the thought of Alex Manyasi. Where is your viewpoint tilted towards when it comes to what the Deputy President has had to say about the COVID cash crunch?
Yeah, I guess the DP, being a politician and running for president in 2022, he's just taking advantage of the goofy former prime minister.
Yeah.
And in that sense, he's trying to say, look, you used to tell me that there was corruption when I was at the center of government, and I'm being deliberate about the words I'm using. Now that you are at the center of government, even though not legally, then you are turning the guns against anyone who is fighting corruption. That's what he's trying to say. And so because of that, and rightfully so, and if you've seen, this kind of thing has elicited a lot of backlash from civil society, from everybody else, around why anybody, unless you're part of it, why will someone on earth want to imagine that they should be saying, wait a minute, we cannot talk about KEMSA until an audit is done, Auditor General, and yet we know that handling an audit from the Auditor General is going to take forever. That we know. We know that the Auditor General has a backlog in terms of the audits that she needs to undertake. She's only been appointed to office the other day. So in other words, the uproar is because it's the imagination that Kenyans can have another 1 or 2 years to wait before we can see an outcome of this. And you see, that means we'll be talking about having no answers until 2022. And by then, of course, issues of corruption will not be on the table at all.
And you know what? A comment in as far as the viewpoint is concerned is a tripartite affair. And that's why I would like to bring in Hamisi Mboga joining us live from Mombasa. Good morning, Hamisi. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Good morning to you all.
Right. Maybe we can begin by getting your viewpoint on the ongoing cash crunch around COVID-19.
Yes, my views and my ideas is I think everything, now that we have the systems, we have the people who can audit this project in less than one week. We have, if there's a mistake, we have the DCI. We have, I think we should be able to assess, because right now what we hear is only stories. We need to have the facts. What happened, how much was received, how much was spent on what, and was it legal or not? And then maybe the system can take place immediately. But now, as far as I'm concerned, I've just been told pesa imeliwa, kumekulwa. We want somebody to come with figures and details. And the people who are supposed to supply these figures are there. Why don't we just summon these guys, either through parliamentary system or through the DCI system or through the audit? We have all those channels to ascertain this situation before we even comment, because some people are commenting. I look at some of the comments are politically motivated.
Yeah.
Yes.
A very valid point. And of course, you found us at a point where we were examining the reaction of the Deputy President. And I would like to stick with you, Hamisi. What do you make of the statements that the Deputy President has been making in the wake of this particular corruption saga?
I think the Deputy President has every right to be able to comment, to be able to raise issues. But I wish he had used their system. They have their system. He's the number 2 in this country. They can sit between him and the presidency and look at they can even summon all those people at a very high level meeting and sort out. By the time they come out, instead of saying this is happening, they should give us some solution. I think he's one of the people who should give us possible solutions, what can be done immediately, because now everybody is getting impression, anything in Kenya, it must be eaten.
Yeah.
And this is bad for our politics, bad for us. Even those people who are good, when you go out, they say, you come from Kenya, or they look at you with double eyes.
Yeah.
This is a sickness we must treat.
They're saying it's a Luya proverb, Hamisi. Whatever you're going through, eat fast. But let's move on to the issue at hand. And Daktari, you remember the airport saga at one point that was articulated during, was it a judiciary event, judiciary and administration of justice report tabling? You remember that? And the Deputy President spoke about it. And after everything, after comment, was that his words could have come back to bite him. Has he learned from history, though, to keep off from some of these matters because they could come with political liabilities, Hamisi?
Yeah, because you remember, if we go back, because we see history is very good. This this dam issue.
Yeah.
Some comments came very fast from the top levels, and then somehow when it all came out, then it became like witch hunt. So my people are being finished. But I think we didn't get that. I don't know what happened to that report, because that would have given us element. If you let a problem live on without checking it, without ascertaining it, Now the Kenyan mind is, if it is done by people next to the government or near the government or in government, it will not be taken seriously. And this is a challenge. Can't we get somebody held responsible with facts and action taken against them so that the others can be able to learn?
Yeah, and I'd like to pick Dr. Rotich's mind and viewpoint on this. Before, and we've had instances in history where the deputy president has been accused of commenting a little too soon when some of these scandals come up. Is this a scenario of not learning from history, or is he milking the political opportunities that come with this particular situation, Daktari?
I think, my brother, to be very fair, the deputy president has been on the receiving end in most of these things. People have been talking about corruption. He has committed this, he has committed that. And it is human to respond that this allegation is not true. It should not be associated with me. You talk about a case like this, Kimware Dam, that has been talked widely in most forums by his opponents. If I can remember very well, Haji himself spoke in one of the media stations saying that he is not connected in any way, but people have been using it as a political tool to attack the deputy president. So in a nutshell, he has got every right to respond that which he is not, without really fearing what the repercussion will be. If I say I'm not that person you are talking about, am I be wrong to talk about myself? And should I fear because of my political repercussion? It cannot be like that.
But for the first time since 2013, he came out and said there's a problem with government. He said that over the weekend. He said there's a problem with government. We are struggling with corruption. But he went ahead and said the blame is all the way at the top and talked about the executive. What's your take? What's your viewpoint?
I don't think, when you cannot expect, of course, to say the deputy president is among the executives. He's within the presidency. And that thing, he's number two in command.
Exactly.
And of course that he cannot run away from the park will stop at the presidency. And he is included in the system.
Presidency.
So I don't buy that idea that he said there is a problem at the top. At the top, he's at the top.
He's part of the top.
He's part of the top. So what can we say here? I think the missing word here is that we are failing to address a very pertinent issue, a problem that has eaten this country by politicizing everything that we are doing. And that is why we don't want to separate the law itself, the law enforcing agency, and the political class.
You know, it's interesting you talk about political interference because today, I'm checking the calendar, it's 26th of August, and tomorrow will be the 27th, 10 years since we promulgated the 2010 Constitution. And pundits argued that this document was going to rein in on some of these issues, corruption being one of them. I'd like to get your viewpoint, Manyasi. Has this document lived to its expectation this far?
Samuel, you see, some of the disappointments that we've had as a country is to be told that we have one of the most progressive constitutions in the world, and yet the same constitution has had the inability to fix some of the basic problems that we have. What that tells you is that most of our problems have not been constitutional. Most of our problems have not been legal. Most of our problems have either been political or social. And the reason why I say that is because if you have a very progressive constitution, one of the best in the world, and yet 10 years down the line, there's a clamor to change it. So are we supposed to be drawing another constitution from heaven or on earth? That's what I don't understand. But having said that, we know there are a few things that should have been changed or a few things that we should be addressing. But if you look at the clamor for the change of the constitution, then you start wondering whether even the clamor itself is geared towards political benefit or for the Kenyan benefit.
Yeah.
And I say that because of two things. Number one, and I'm on record saying this, is that number one, the structure of government, it's the best constitution that we have in that sense, but the structure of government, in my view, is too heavy at the lower level in terms of the counties. I do not believe, and someone needs to convince me, I do not believe that it's viable to have 47 counties.
Yeah.
So if there's anything that we need to be discussing, then it should be centered around that. The issue of corruption and why, the Constitution, the way it was designed, with the three arms of government, and a fourth arm, which is the constitutional bodies that were supposed to be counter-checking, the kind of balancing the three arms of government, the separation of power, giving autonomy to the judiciary, making the executive accountable to parliament, and having the legislature that can run its own calendar. Those are things that we didn't have. However, if you look at the rampant corruption that we have, it is people in office manipulating the system. And that is why you'll find someone getting away with so much money and a case taking 20 years in court. And by the time the case is done, you realize that the people who took away the money are not even in the scene. We have no capacity as a country, and capacity here, I don't mean that we are below average in terms of human capacity, but what I mean is we have no capacity, for example, as at now, to bring to book powerful people sitting in office. So the only thing that we do is to pick one or two people and make them examples and pretend that we are fighting corruption. We are not fighting corruption in Kenya. The efforts that the president initiated, in my view, it has gotten to a point where the system is being fatigued by a process that is not generating any meaningful output in terms of fight corruption. It is not possible. For example,
let me transfer that
we can say
to
we have done all the reform.
Yeah.
That we have done all the reform, and yet if you look at how much money have we recovered? How many prosecutions have we successfully done?
Manyasi, I'd like to interject and sort of, transfer your viewpoint to Hamisi, though, and attention drawn to a governance and accountability summit that happened in the State House, and this was the president speaking. He asked, "Nataka nifanye nini? What is that thing that I'm supposed to be doing? What is that thing that my government is supposed to be doing that it is not doing when it comes to the fight against corruption," Hamisi?
Okay, thank you. Again, I think all these points that are coming out are valid from Manyasi and the other colleague. My view is I think it's time to revisit the 2010 Constitution, because tomorrow is 10 years exactly, to look at what have we done, what are the prospects, what are the challenges. And one of the challenges I see as a person, as a Kenyan, is the governance. And I'm looking at it from a broader concept. The governance means this constitution has given us directions, what to do, who is supposed to do what, and at what time. Has this thing been done? Look at the chapter of integrity. If we were following the chapter on integrity properly, a few people would not be in the system, in the management system right now. As such, they should have been kept away, things are checked, but this has not happened. Two, these three levels, these three arms of the government, the executive, the parliament, and the judiciary, have they done what this constitution says they're supposed to be done? If they have done, what are the challenges? And some people have come out, the courts have come out complaining, parliament has come out complaining. So there is something missing. We need to revisit this executive in terms of three arms, parliament and judiciary, so that it's seamless. Any action taken according to the law should be seamless. So my belief is when we revisit the Constitution, and the report is coming out hopefully very soon, has it looked at this governing structure? Because actually it's the main thing. If you smoothen, if you make it seamless, if you make it responsible, if somebody has missed, should be out, I think we are going to get very far. If you look at the constitution in Kenya and the other constitution in Africa, like what Alex has said, we are the best structure. That booklet, if you follow it properly, many things would have been done. Look at the decentralization. It has given steps of what decentralization is supposed to be, but the implementation that we structured. When we were saying before 2010, the idea was not so many counties. And I repeat, I said the other time, the maximum was supposed to be 10. Or if we close our eyes, it was supposed to be 12. But now we have many structures, and all those structures are costing the taxpayer. Is it time to relook at those structures? If I were me, I would not reduce the economic support to these counties, but combine it so that you reduce the number of the units, give the same amount. In fact, they will be getting more money. If you are taking a county which has now about 3, 4, 5 units and make it one, you're making it stronger by saying we are only reducing the implementers, because you're saying instead of 4 governors, we have 1 governor. Can you see the cost of reduction of the economy? Instead of every county has 10 to 12 county ministers, now we'll have only 10 counties with 10 ministers, about 100 people we are paying, but now it's 470. I'm looking at the costing of implementation.
The implication.
So it's both the governance and also the implementation of the constitution, which we need to revisit.
Okay, we need to revisit, and valid point there. Daktari Rotich, a socio and economic audit was conducted on this 2010 constitution towards the period of 2015-2016, a document that is still somewhere in Parliament. It was never really discussed because it was bypassed by a 2017 general election. But from your point of view, what are some of the issues you pick up very fast that could be hindering constitutional implementation in the country?
I think, let me just elaborate something that you said about when the head of state actually stated that, what do you want me to do?
Yeah, we never answered him that question.
I think, let me say, the head of state means well for this country. By his work, by his iteration in every forum that he has been, he has always spoken very hard and candid against the corruption. And he has tried his most, he has tried mostly, and he's spoken in most of the forums, even accusing the judiciary for not doing enough to curb the vice. He was saying, this is what we have done. Investigation has been done. The culprits has been identified. But why are they not put to bus?
He even said, I have increased funding
to
the various institutions.
So what he's actually saying is that he has done what the Constitution, can provide to propel the whole scenario, the fight against corruption, effectively. But somehow, somewhere, things are not being done correctly. Somebody somewhere must be sleeping on his job.
By who?
He has been pointing at the judiciary. That much of what is in the judiciary is so slow that they cannot really work or rather complete their charges or cases within a stipulated period of time. So that you find cases dragging on for so many years.
In the defense of the judiciary, we've seen the Chief Justice, David Maraga, talk about capacity. He does not have sufficient capacity, that is what he says, to deal with some of these cases.
And let me tell you,
he doesn't have judges, he doesn't have magistrates. He said that the other day. He's underfunded. Courts are not running. COVID-19 is a reality. What do you want him to do, Daktari?
How many corruption cases has been passed? How long will it take? Will take this country for 10 cases to be finished?
But you've seen
how long?
Have you seen how we prosecute?
How much
corruption,
funding
sir?
has been made to the treasury?
You see how we prosecute in terms even of the charge sheet, the number of the litany of lawyers that are supposed to be involved, filing of petition and responses, in the process in itself that is sort of somewhat halfway digitized. It's going to take time.
What I can say, corruption fights back. Much of the corruption or grand corruption that we have witnessed in this country have been committed by people who are well connected, big people who hires the best lawyers available.
And people who understand the law.
And people who understand the law. And also you compare with the competitiveness of those who are, in our judiciary.
Yeah.
So the process takes long because of the kind of deep-rooted.
Are we then saying the system is flawed? And I would like to move
Yes.
to Alex. I would like to move to Alex because the same judiciary has said, my work is not to make the laws. I simply interpret them as they are. So is the problem elsewhere as opposed to the judiciary, Alex?
The problem is actually everywhere and not necessarily with the judiciary only or with the executive only. And there are reasons why I say that. We have seen, for example, magistrates who have been fired because of corruption. We have seen that. And the CJA has pronounced himself on this as well in terms of admitting that there are people within the judiciary who are also rotten. That's a fact. Some of them have been fired or interdicted or whatever it is because of being involved in corruption cases, in the sense that they collect money. I don't want to give specific examples, but all of you know of cases where corrupt people have gotten away with it because of giving money. So that's the judiciary. But also, you need to realize that it's almost impossible for the judiciary to be compromised without the police, because the prosecution and the DPP. So the prosecution, the way it happens, is that the police will tamper with the evidence, and of course, they will be in cahoots with the judiciary, in the sense that by the time a case arrives in court, it's as good as having been defeated before it shows up. So what happens is it's like interfering with the scene of crime. If a rape has happened, and then the person has taken a shower, and then the doctor who examined the rape, the victim, is not qualified, for example, is not registered, and then that case ends up in court. What will happen is that on technicalities, that case will be lost. So you see, it's a chain, in the sense that if you have committed corruption or crime, then what you do is that they collude with the police such that when they come to pick documents, they make sure that they forget important documents. And then when they compile the file and it ends up in court, the person who is handling the file in court, and that's why you find a court clerk who earns 18,000 shillings or 20,000 shillings driving a Mercedes Benz. It does not require a rocket scientist to tell you that that person is not doing legal business. When it ends up at the judge or the magistrate's desk, already that case was lost before it was prosecuted. So it's a chain, and that's why my intervention will be that it is not going to be possible to fight corruption unless we look at it all the way from the investigation point to where the judge sits.
It's interesting.
Once we do that, then it's going to be possible to know that we can fight corruption by putting blame where it belongs, because at this time, it's everywhere.
When Kibaki came to power, the whole issue about overhaul of the judiciary came to the forefront. And back then we had the Sharad Rao-led committee that was supposed to vet magistrates and judges. Then towards the run-up of the 2010 constitution, judges and magistrates were made to take a fresh oath of office. And all these things are being done in an effort to sanitize the judiciary. We even formed a commission, the Judiciary Service Commission, that is an independent body that is supposed to oversee hiring and welfare for judges. But yet, in 2020, Hamisi, we are still saying judiciary is to blame when it comes to the war against corruption. Who's fooling who here?
Yes, we are fooling ourselves, all of us, because we have not done certain things that will assist us. And one of the things I said in the last presentation was, did we do a capacity assessment of every institution that we have in the country for its capability? In the judiciary, we need this number of people, they need this kind of skills, and therefore, if they need this kind of skills, how do we remunerate them? If you take another line, in the implementation levels, do we need the number of people that are there in terms of officers and offices through capacity assessment? Have we done that one? And if we thoroughly look at it, what skills do we require? If they're not even in the country, where do we get them? Because we need to do that. And then when you get these skills, finally, I'm looking at it at governance and goodwill. Do we have a goodwill to take action on some of the things that we are obvious and we know? Instead of politicizing that these have not done it, or those other people did it, they were not prosecuted, now our people are being prosecuted. I think it's governance and it's goodwill, powerful political goodwill, and somehow somebody was saying it's too early for democracy, but this is the price for democracy we are paying, because democracy requires that actually you do the right thing at the right time, and requires that you are questioned if you do something wrong in terms of the setup. And it's biting because it's touching if it touches some people very close to you, some of the leaders don't hold, they come out. And to us, they are protecting those people who have made something wrong. So let's revisit our governance, let's revisit our distribution of resources, let's revisit our capacity assessment. How many people do we need for every position? And how much does it cost to run the institutions? What equipment do we need? Like in the health, before this pandemic, people were crying, we are underfunded in terms of health facilities. But how much compared to our economy, how much can we afford to do certain things? Are there some excesses, things that should be done away with until such a time that we are capable, we have enough resources to be able to implement them? Can we reroute some of these projects so that we address certain governance issues? And then finally, political goodwill of everybody.
Yeah, Hamisi, you make a very compelling argument. However, we're always in a state of work in progress. Let us do, let us revisit, let us do this. And pardon my sarcasm, gentlemen, but is the judiciary also to blame for the lack of enabling legislation when it comes to gender parity, Dr. Rotich?
I think what we must also realize, the fight against corruption rests entirely as a collective responsibility for all Kenyans. Even though we normally say the buck stops at the executive, there must be a collective responsibility just from the grassroots to the top level. And Kenyans must remain watchful on what they are doing, and they must take individually responsible for whatever is happening on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
When we talk about the political will, the current constitution, the 2010 constitution, I can say it is one of the best constitutions that we have. And there is no perfect constitution.
It's been called progressive.
Yes.
One of the most progressive in the world.
You cannot compare the 2010 constitution with the constitution that was used during the Moi era.
The independence one.
Moi had more powers than Uhuru Kenyatta has at the moment. That is why this constitution, the 2010 constitution, is more democratic, more focused, and the power is distributed.
Daktari, let me stick with you because you've spoken about powers. an allegation has been made that yes, as much as we took some powers from the presidency, we sort of created parliamentary autocracy. And that is why so many things, division of revenue, literally, county allocation, is a stalemate because the ego in Senate cannot allow them to pass this particular formula. What's your take on that?
I think the most unfortunate thing at the moment, it is more political than actually being objective in whatever these parliaments are actually doing. You talk about the division of revenue to the county governments. It has taken an about turn because of the issue of population, which is now related to some ethnic or particular groupings.
Is it though?
It is not normal.
Is it though normal for us to be going into this year in, year out, and then we're going to say it's population, ethnic distribution, census report? We know where the problem is. It's an ego issue, Daktari.
It was a formula that was brought about by the CRA, and it is a formula that was discussed before it came out. And during the time when it was now about to be implemented, is when all these political reasoning, political diversionaries and political, as we can see now, I'm not seeing the impasse being actually broken. I'm seeing us going to the very sharing revenue formula that we had in 2019, 2020. Because that is the only way to go back and rethink. We need time to rethink because it is now turning political.
Even when we talk about audited books of accounts, when was the last time we audited our accounts?
The problem was...
just hold that thought, Daktari, and pardon me for that, because I need to bring in Alex Manyasi. Alex, when you look at gender parity in the country, and the fact that 10 years down the line, we haven't been able to come up with enabling legislation to help the country tackle this particular issue, where are the loopholes?
It's because we're not ready for what we proposed in the Constitution. That's why. The political class is not ready. The powerful office holders are not ready. Parliament itself is not ready. And so that's why we are where we are. The courts issued orders. They almost issued threats to Parliament with the dissolution, but that has not happened. So because of that, it's just a matter of recognizing that the people who are supposed to make it happen are not convinced that that is what we should be doing. And if you look at it even from the examples, and I have given that example on this show, when it was said that Charity Ngilu has only one minister in her county who is female, then that tells you how far we are from getting anywhere on this gender issue. Because the people that hold those offices do not believe in the first place. Because you see, the gender issue, apart from the elected positions, our constitution is clear about having at least a third. So in cabinet, for the appointee positions, all of them should have at least a third. So at the county level, you expect that at least if there are 10 CECs, then you expect at least 4 being women or either gender, for that matter. You know, unfortunately, again, anytime we talk about gender, we imagine that is a women issue. It's supposed to be either gender, because you never know. In future, you might get the scales having tilted.
I know.
So I do not believe, and I'm on record having said that, having watched the body language of the people who are supposed to make it happen, it's not happening.
Right, and you know what, gentlemen, Hamisi, I would love to come to you, but time is of a constraint for us right here on the show. But you know what kind of politics right here in the country, it's same script, a different cast, but I promise you, Hamisi, I'll be starting with you come next Wednesday. I'm very sure there will be yet another not corruption, but political issue that we need to weigh in on. In the meantime, you talk about, Alex, talking about gender being a male and also female issue. I mean, also look at me right here. I'm the minority on this show. I host this show with 3 ladies. So I sort
You
of
have a
probably
minute.
need
You have
that
half a minute.
legislation more than anyone else. Dr. Rotich, you held a thought when it comes to our capacity in dealing with corruption. We'll pick it up from that point next time on the show, gentlemen. However, for now, thank you so much for coming through and enjoy your day, okay? Well, time has come for us to wrap up Good Morning Kenya. Thank you so much for your company and your time. I'm still trying to get over this particular gift that I got from my co-presenters today. I mean, it's a smiley face, emoji and everything. So thank you so much for that. Appreciated your comments, suggestions, everything. Asante sana for choosing KBC to kickstart your morning. My name is Samuel Njoroge, and this is the only way to start your day. Good Morning Kenya. Have a fantastic day, and we'll catch up tomorrow. It's a date, all right? Good morning.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.